Welcome into today's episode of Off the Record Marketing Deconstructed. On today's episode, our team dives into your ideal client, your target audience, and how that truly affects the marketing message that you share with the world. I hope you enjoy today's episode.
Your impressions are low, your engagements are low, your website traffic has not gone up, but we've gotten you X new clients in the past.
Everyone came out with like a seltzer, and that was to fit the younger, trendier demographic.
If you're not efficient in what you're doing, and you are just kind of spraying and praying a little bit and going with that wide angle, you might not be.
You were like 3.
I don't know when it was. I probably was 3. Cassie might have been 3.
I was alive, okay?
I actually just had a conversation with Rhonda, who I do that Wednesday live with on Instagram, about ideal client. And as the marketing professional, we were talking about, I'm doing this thing virtually with a group of people, and we're trying to come up with a ideal client that fits like who we're trying to target as a group. So it's more like a group ideal client. And I was sharing that with her, and she's like, okay, now take that further. And take that further. And I was like, okay, you're doing exactly what I do with clients, like when we're talking about ideal client, but it's uncomfortable because I don't want to go further, right? Because she's like, I think that you need to decide whether you're doing gender or not, whether you're doing male or female, if you're doing college graduate, if you're doing, this, that, and the other. And I was like, yeah, but it's a coordinated effort between 4 people that have very similar ideal clients, but with a little bit of difference, right? There's some nuances there. And so we're a little bit broader in the scope of the ideal client that we're trying to target. And she's like, I think you need to decide. I was like, so it just brought to me, I think, why trying to figure out the ideal client for people, for businesses, is difficult because you do have to dig a little deeper, and sometimes that's a hard process to uncover.
Well, and I think like our society has kind of taught us to like not do that, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, but with marketing especially, it's like trying to dig deeper and segment out those populations. It kind of goes against our grain, as our society has changed. And it's like with digging in and finding that like one persona, it can feel wrong when you leave other people out, but in this case, it's good to know who you're targeting, who you're trying to speak to, so then you can speak the right message.
No, you know what? That's a very good point, and I didn't think about it that way because I think, and you guys are younger, and I've been doing this more, but from the standpoint of, I think you're right. I think from a marketing perspective, we've always been taught, like, all of the different things that you need to look at to segment somebody out and who your ideal client is, and that is political, it's race, it's, gender, it's demographics and psychographics, it's how much money, it's class, it's all of those things, right? And those are all of the things growing into marketing that you learn to try and figure out who your ideal client is. You actually have to segment or segregate, right? Who it is, what it is, and what your brand or your company, like who you're going after to bring into your universe. Yeah. And it's against everything that in our political climate, in our social climate, and everything that we're doing goes against that. Yeah. And I think that we've seen some examples of how that works and how that doesn't work.
It's also completely contradictory to the way that most people perceive performance metrics, right? Because everything is more, right? We want more clients, we want more eyeballs, we want more engagements, we want more link clicks, and we do too, right? Like the 4 of us sitting here, we do as well. But if you want a $1 cost per lead, you're not going to get more. I mean, right? Like we have to be hyper focused on whatever the right demographic or the right audience traits are, right? And so that's going to inherently decrease the amount of eyeballs
Yes.
to.
Do you want more leads?
Yes.
Or do you want more quality leads?
Yes, right. There's a difference to that, and I think that sometimes where from the agency side, there's that miscommunication or that misunderstanding with the clients of like, your impressions are low, your engagements are low, your website traffic has not gone up, but we've gotten you X new clients in the past however many days, right? And the cost per lead is healthy, right? And so it just, when you look at it from a performance standpoint, it does kind of go against exactly what you're talking about.
I do feel like the efficiency factor is important to put in there, because a lot of times for marketing, if you're not efficient in what you're doing and you are just kind of spraying and praying a little bit and going with that wide angle, you might not, if you're an agency, you might not be with the client very long. And if you're working at a company, you might not be working at that company very long. And I think it's always important to, what you were talking about, usually these don't come off, we don't segment people out from the jump. Usually it's a matter of looking at past data for the products that you're selling and trying to figure out who is already congregating towards, buying your product, and then segmenting out people who have shown in the past with their actions that they're not interested. And, it's never going to be, especially if you're using still mass media, if you're doing TV, you might be looking for a certain type of person, but that doesn't mean other type of people won't see your ads. If you're doing it for a billboard, you know who frequents that road, but you're still going to get other people. But yeah, it's just for efficiency's sake, and it's usually just going off past data to make an informed decision on what to do with your money.
Well, and it's kind of like Stanley, like the whole Stanley Cup thing that happened. I don't even know what to call it. Everyone has a Stanley, and it's like they've been a company for like 100 years, and they were dominantly, marketing to men, fishing, hunting, like all of those type of niches. And then here we are in 2024, and every mom, influencer, blogger has a Stanley, and now everyone knows what a Stanley is.
Yeah, it feels like it's one of those happy accidents where if you look at this and just make it a black or a dark gray, this is a construction worker is going to have this on the site because it's big, it keeps the water cold, and it's durable.
But the Target cup was pink. The Target cup that everybody fought over and tried to get in and get a Target, the Stanley Cup, was pink. So the question was, who was targeting? Was that a Stanley Target or was that a Target Target?
Well, I think that's kind of the point, right? Like you could easily have targeted this to men by making a couple of changes. And so like if we think about how many jobs have we had where we're not on the agency side, right? We're on the brand side, where we're in marketing, we're making a lot of the content and the decisions and what have you, but we are not in the target audience, right? Like
frequently.
A lot.
Exactly.
Almost exclusively.
Yeah.
And so I think like that, to your point about data, right? And as we talk about like the Stanley piece, you're talking about a company that for however many decades, whatever it's been, is at that point, that company is, my guess, predominantly made up of those that would fall into the target to some extent, right? I guarantee there were not influencer moms who made that. Right? Like they probably weren't the ones calling the shots at Stanley, right? And so the point about data and the point about understanding trends and the point about understanding the shifts that happen over the course of marketing, whether it's short term, whether it's long term. I don't know how long the Stanley thing will be a trend. My guess is not long. There's probably a competitor, right?
There will be a new thing.
Exactly.
There was a Yeti, there was an Owala, now there's a Stanley, like the next
These
one
aren't
will.
Stanleys. I'm just saying.
Well, they look like
Stanleys.
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 They're simply modern.
Yes.
Thank you, Amazon.
Yeah. No, but think about that though. I think from that standpoint too, do you market to the trend? Or do you market to your foundation? Do you market to what you've traditionally known, who your traditional client is, that hasn't changed over years and decades. And not to get political, but let's talk about the Budweiser ad, right? That marketing team went towards a social and political trend versus what is classic and foundationally a Bud Light, it was Bud Light, right? Client. And that backfired. So even though you're marketing towards what is trending in our culture, in our society, in our political climate, it doesn't help your brand. And so again, that's where you really have to look at who is your ideal client, because you still need to go after people that are going to help you grow your business, right?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know if necessarily, riding the wave of a trend, if it's going in your favor, is a bad thing. To keep with the Stanley Cup. Sorry, that's not a Stanley Cup. For them to maybe transition some of their marketing towards going after, a younger to middle-aged female audience that would see them, want them because other people have them. It's kind of going on. I don't think by leaning into that, Stanley would have lost its core customers who are already there for the reason that they are, because what you're leaning into isn't inherently or fundamentally going to, piss off the
people
that you've already established.
But think about that though with Stanley in particular, or any of these, mega cup companies. They can go after a particular target because they can change the product to meet what that target wants, right? In the case of Bud Light, they could have come up with a different product to target a different segment that fit the trend and what was going on.
Well, that's kind of like with all the seltzers a few years ago. Everyone came out with a seltzer, and that was to fit the younger, trendier demographic. And it was okay, that makes sense. You're taking a new product and giving it to a new demographic.
Exactly.
And you're going with the trends, yes. Yeah. But you're not pushing
you're not taking
established
classic product that has always been in this lane and trying to move it into this lane.
So my question here, and this is kind of a societal thing, right, and a cultural thing, but my question is, would Bud Light have gone to the wayside over time anyway? Because if they want to target a younger demographic, that's fine. Companies do that all the time. I'm not saying that that's a bad idea. My thing is that if we look at, and I don't have all the answers to this. I've not necessarily done this research, right? We're just going on the fly here. Yeah. But if we talk about seltzers and we talk about, is that younger demographic even drinking beer? Are they even drinking Bud Light? And then the question becomes, would they, as they age for whatever reason, right? Because we know that the core audience for Bud Light is older, right? They told us that. That's not an assumption. They told us that. Have they drank Bud Light, Budweiser, whatever, their entire life, or did they take it up at a certain point, right? I think
if their college frat party.
But so if the younger demographic for them isn't there, why is that? That's inherently the problem. Because if you're right, if the older demographic that they do have been drinking it for their entire life, why isn't the younger audience? And would they have lost their customer base whenever the older generation dies off anyway? Did they just expedite the process to their own kind of, decades worth of marketing, kind of failures?
And I think a lot of brands are going through that right now. As Gen Z comes into the workforce, we are making decisions a lot differently than our parents and our grandparents did, because we've seen the effects of so many things: nutritional choices, lifestyle choices, decor choices,
technical choices.
And so there's so many things that I think that brands, they're going to either get with Gen Z or get out. Unfortunately, because baby boomers are going to be leaving the workforce and going into those retirement homes, and Gen Z will be stepping in. So what are brands going to do about it?
I think they have to really focus on the product that they're trying to sell and the direction that they want to go. But they may actually have to, in the process, iterate the product that they have into something that is going to fit the direction they want to go, versus taking a classic product and trying to force it into that lane.
Blockbuster, right? That's what you just described as Blockbuster to me. I think the one thing, so Blockbuster had an opportunity to buy Netflix, 25 years ago or whatever, 20, 25, whatever it was. I don't know what year it was. But Netflix goes to Blockbuster and says, "Hey, buy us, right? We've got this opportunity."
You were like 3.
I don't know when it was. I probably wasn't 3. Cassie might have been.
I was alive, okay? I remember that.
I had Netflix DVDs in my,
Me too.
my living room.
Okay, so
Yes.
here's where I think it's a very much a business decision. But as we talk about the target audience, here's where I think Netflix got it right and Blockbuster just completely they just had blinders on, right? So Netflix, they send out the DVDs, right? You've got your queue, and you send one back, they send you the next one, whatever. At some point, they also did that for video games. You could rent a video game for whatever your console was through Netflix. Now, that's not really their business model. They don't really, I think they have like their own games in the platform or whatever, but like that's not really their business model now. But kudos to them, because now you look at the way the video game industry, I mean, Microsoft and Blizzard or whatever it was, and multi-billions and billions and billions of dollar acquisition, and you look at the streaming platforms, right? Twitch and all these things and the popularity, right? Like Blockbuster is not only around today, but mega players in the streaming, right? Like production. If they look at it from the perspective, well, no, Blockbuster would be. I'm saying, like Netflix looked at it and they were like, video games, yeah, let's do that. People don't want to go to the movie theaters anymore, right? They don't have time for whatever reason. The way technology is, like they looked at, it's not the generation before us, right? They looked at that and they said, these are the trends. Netflix saw it. Netflix went to Blockbuster, who had an infrastructure, right? They had brick and mortar stores. They had locations to make shipping easier, right? They had the infrastructure to be able to support it, and they said, "We've got here it is. Here's the model." And Blockbuster laughed them out of the room, and look what it got them, simply by not understanding the trends in their audience and the way things were shaping up to evolve.
I think it was short-sighted on the side of Blockbuster, but I'm not 100% sure what the timing and the years were. Yeah. But it just still seems surprising to me that Blockbuster on that, seeing something like Redbox where people already were going to something where I don't have to interact with a person. I can choose my own thing. I can just walk in. Boom,
and
it's cheaper.
Teenagers can go in and get the video game that they want to play or they want to try before they buy.
I was doing that, with Redbox. It was great.
Yeah. Kids would go into the grocery with their parents and be like, I'm going to go find me a game.
Yeah.
And they were making it easier and easier. They're like, I'm not only going to put it at the grocery store, I'm going to put it at McDonald's. I'm going to put it at, just random places where you're already going to go to make it simpler for you and you have to interact with less people. Yeah. They simply saw that and said, that's not sustainable. And making it even easier by doing it all at home and not even needing to go to the grocery store or McDonald's and returning it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Netflix was the start of that. And now we have Hulu, we have Disney Plus, we have all of these other streaming services and platforms. And it's like, could you imagine on the flip side of if Blockbuster did acquire Netflix, what would have happened? Would they have, went with the time or came with the times and
Blockbuster
they wouldn't even have to be, right? They could still have gotten rid of all the brick and mortar stores and still be dominant.
Or do you think they would have burned out?
I think that's an interesting question, right? If they do they view it as a competition thing and they basically kill Netflix, and then how long does that set back? Yes. Or does Hulu still happen as Hulu does, or whatever it is? It's kind of the opposite, right? But it was within the past couple of years that CNN puts out their OTT, their over the top, right? And it was they hired all these, all these political pundits, right? And these big names. And they lasted 3 months before they shut down. And that's another example of who's your audience, CNN? I'm not your. I mean, Do I watch? Am I likely to watch CNN if there's something newsworthy happening? Sure, right? But am I watching CNN on a daily basis to the point that I'm going to subscribe to CNN Plus or whatever it is? And no one 75 and older is going to sit down and watch CNN Plus or whatever.
And the bulk of the people who are watching CNN or Fox News or any of the established news stations, most of them are still the ones who are plugged into Dish and DirecTV. They don't need CNN Plus. They don't need MSNBC Plus or Fox News. Like they don't need.
But think about So there's the satellite thing, but one of the things that really prompted all of these streaming networks is that cable prices went sky high, and people were like, I'm not paying that. They had kind of a corner on the market, right? Mm-hmm. You get your internet through them, you get your TV through them, you get your phone through them. Like they put all these packages together, and it got astronomically higher and higher and higher. So then people started looking for an alternative. Well, what's the alternative? You could go to a satellite like a Dish or what's the other one? DirecTV or something like that, right? But who wants to have a dish on their roof or in their yard or whatever, and then when it rains, it goes out, and like there's all the stuff, right? And it's still just as expensive as cable. And then you have, I have this and I have that and I have my phone and so now you're paying 3 or 4 different things when you just had one bill. And then you have all these cord cutters, right? That was like, I'm just going to go, if I have to put something on my roof, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the old antenna. Right. Or, I'm going to get that clean modern antenna that I can stick on the wall in my living room and get all the local stations.
That's great.
Okay, well, if I do that, then where am I going to get my HBO? Where am I going to get my news? Where am I going to get this? So that's when all the streaming platforms came in. But now the streaming platforms need to make money, right? Yeah. So advertising is really cheap on that. So we're going to have to raise our subscription rate. So now I'm actually probably, because I'm one of those cord cutters, I'm paying more money now for all the streaming platforms, and I have kids. And so now they're like, can I get the NBA channel? Can I get the hockey channel? Can I get, can I get the NFL channel? And then can you add Red Zone to that? Can you add, all of this stuff? And then you're like, oh, I think I'm just going to go back to cable.
Right? Like, do you think there will be a turnaround on that where it's like another section of, you have the cable versus streaming versus...
I think that our culture, though, like, I look at my kids, too, is, like, that's all they know is streaming. So I don't know that... I think that's just going to develop even further for those generations.
I 100% see it going because, like you said, that problem is arising where now people are paying just as much or more to have, 6 or 7 different streaming things to watch, one show on each. I very, very much see it, and it's already kind of starting to happen there's a sports one coming out where a lot of them from different companies are going to work together. You already kind of see it with what Disney has done with ESPN and Hulu, and the fact that they already have Hulu Plus or Hulu Live as a competitor to a cable. I think you're going to start to see a lot of. You're no longer going to have a lot of live. You're not going to have HSN or these just trivial news or trivial live stations that have always been carried by the big people on cable. You're going to have Hulu who runs something where there's...
Wait, isn't HSN the home shopping network? Is that what you're...
that just kind of came to my head, but just as random places that on their own, no one wants. Like the amount of people who watch it, it's nowhere near the amount that people will somehow keep it going if it's not carried by other bigger players, like an ESPN, Fox Sports 1, the big people on TV. I think you're just going to end up seeing it where there's going to be live sports, there's going to be live news, and then they're going to have streaming options available to where you might get a whole season, you might still get it weekly, but it's just going to appear on Hulu like they already do with all FX shows, what they already do with all the other things in their wheelhouse. They say, that's okay if you don't have our live version. We'll give it to you. You just have to watch it a day late.
I was thinking about the Disney thing. You think about Disney, and going back to kind of ideal client is Disney has people that have been watching Disney coming up, right? And they have transitioned. You can cut that.
Yeah.
Transitioned to older generation that's now streaming, right? That's now looking for sports, looking for those TV shows. And so they are taking their ideal client, their market that's been with them since they were little kids, right? And now they're offering them other things. So it kind of goes back to they're targeting the people that know them and have been in their universe, and they're trying to find a different way to keep them in the Disney universe.
So, and I think we were talking about Netflix, right? I think in the spirit of not understanding your target audience, not understanding the kind of the trends of the industry, I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot whenever they transitioned more so to production, right? And I think they made some, my opinion, right, is they made some pretty questionable production decisions, right? When you give, and I don't quote me on the numbers, I don't know what they are, right? But you give an absurd amount of money to Dave Chappelle to do specials, or Jerry Seinfeld, or Adam Sandler, I think had like something like a 7-movie contract or whatever, and it was an absurd. Nothing against Adam Sandler, right? Like Happy Gilmore, I'm here for it. You know what I mean? Like it's nothing against Adam Sandler. Is that what the Netflix audience wanted, right? Those on Netflix, they really want to watch Adam Sandler do a couple of movies with Jennifer Aniston about being spies or what? I've never seen them, right? But like, is that the right decision?
They weren't as good as if they did them for a major movie.
Well, that's right. Yeah. I think that I don't know why they have their reasons. That's great, but I don't think based on what Hulu has done and based on what Disney has done, to your point, right, of kind of evolving, and I think they're trying to correct that now by going into live sports, right? Yeah. Netflix is trying to get into live sports the same way some others are. Yeah. And Hulu's done it. That's great.
Amazon's doing it. Right? I mean, they have the Thursday night football.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I think after they get the local baseball and basketball networks, Amazon's going to be a major player for sports just going forward.
What's so interesting is TNT and ABC or ESPN or whatever, they're on ABC and ESPN, but whoever owns the contract, they have first right of refusal. They can match anything. So like if Amazon offers an absurd amount of money, technically Turner and ABC or Disney could match it, but why would you, right? If like why would you want to compete with Amazon right now or Hulu right now or Disney or what,
It would be interesting to see what happens with that, because at some point I think the FCC is going to have to step in, because but you need to have choices.
Sure.
And I think with the amount of money, it's the same thing with the shopping, right? And all of that. Like at some point there has to be competition. It'll be interesting.
I do think they're going to have the FCC might have a tough time, because I think places like Amazon and places like Disney are going to look at them and say, okay, but if we control 90% of it, people are now paying a smaller fee to access everything that we provide, whereas before, with the open market, people were paying more than they were with cable, which was the whole goal of streaming in the first place, to pay less. But after you get to a certain point, people have to make money, and so everything rises. And if you control most of the market, you can kind of strangle everything else out, because you're able to...
But once you strangle, then you have all of the power to increase those prices.
I agree, but I think, and it's hard for me to say this,
that's what their argument would be.
I don't love everything that Amazon does, but at the same time, they haven't started charging more for their Prime.
Yes,
but
it hasn't been
$99 to $179 plus.
But how many times has Netflix increased their prices since Amazon did that? How many times has Hulu or Disney Plus increased their prices since?
Do you pay more? Technically, you do, because you pay for the Amazon Prime, but you don't have to pay, in theory, an extra charge to use Amazon Prime's television services. You still get Thursday Night Football for free included.
But they increase the price on the other things, right? The things that used to be included in your Prime membership, now you pay a premium for. So you pay a little bit more if you want to do Audible. You pay a little bit more. When Prime first came out, like those things were actually included in your membership. And now you have to pay more, and the credits cost more. Like, so there are, there's
repercussions.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things, right? in pricing. You can make this look low and make this look high, but again, it's like, are people willing to pay it? Is their target market willing to pay it?
And that's when it goes back to the point of you have to give the market choices to make. If we only can watch football on Amazon, then we're going to pay whatever we have to.
Right. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Off the Record Marketing Deconstructed. If you would like more information about our team, you can follow us on social media at 5 and Rise, or you can visit our website at 5andrise.com. We invite you to share, subscribe, and leave us a review, and tune in to our next episode.